Okay guys, this is actually the second time that I've done this video. I had actually recorded this in various stages, showing the repair and screenshots on Exentry, but believe it or not, I've had an SD card failure in my phone, and a 64 gig SD card just one day decided to die. Can't access it, can't read it, so I've lost all the videos that were on that card. But anyway, so I'll quickly recap what I've done to this vehicle and the chain of events, because I've learned something new which potentially you may come across again. But basically the card in question is a 2007 W219 CLS. It's a 350 petrol. So this would also cross over onto a W211 E-Class Merc. And basically the car's already gone, the usual scenario, gone to another repairer, and basically the car had the usual red warning in the middle of the dash about brake failure, dash chiming, blah blah blah. So they have it in and they condemn Sensortronic braking unit. So they go down the route of, basically, if we look at the Sensortronic units, this is the original unit. Now, if I actually plug this into the vehicle, we have got the usual service runtime error. Basically, the motor has exceeded its life, plus there is an internal hydraulic failure. So definitely this unit is faulty. I'm pretty confident this is the original problem, as it is with all Sensortronic brakes. It's the only thing that ever goes wrong with them, generally speaking, should I say. So they decide to go down the second-hand route and sourced one from a Mercedes breaker, due to the cost of obviously a new Sensortronic unit. So they fitted the second-hand one, went through the various startup routines. I don't know what scan tool they've got, I don't know about that. And they had the car for a good few weeks, and basically they couldn't bleed the brakes up. So the customer, they then basically deemed that this second-hand unit must be faulty. They contacted the Mercedes breaker where they had it from, and basically the Mercedes breaker said, unless you've got Star or Exentry, you can't install that properly, you can't bleed it properly, there's nothing up with that unit, it came off a good working vehicle, we know there's nothing wrong with it, so basically fuck off, you're not having your money back. At that point, the 350 quid down on the second hand one, and they've said to the customer, it needs a new one, we can't fit a new one, it's got to go into Mercedes. So that was the end of that. So the customers obviously spoke to me, and I said, look, I don't mind, I can fix this car. I said, but for absolute starters, this car's having a new Sensortronic. I'm not dealing with a second-hand Sensortronic unit. It's as simple as that. So he agreed to that. So I fitted genuine Bosch exchange unit. Now, before I started, as I always do with these units and other brake systems, I did have pictures of this I was going to show you, but like I say, they've been deleted. I always put masking tape round and number them, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take a picture, and then when you put the parts back, you know you're putting them back correctly. So that's what I did when this unit was installed. Okay, so I went through the bleed routine, and again, I could not get this thing to bleed up properly. Now what I discovered was we had no fluid displacement on the left front, and we also had, but we had displacement on the rear left, which we shouldn't do. It was pouring fluid out on the rear left, which isn't right, because how the fail-safe system works on these, I don't know if you knew this, but if you were to unplug the Sensortronic unit, or we had an hydraulic failure in here, or the fail-safe on these Sensortronic braking is purely the front brakes. That's it. So when you apply pressure at the brake pedal, that pressure is transferred, no assistance at all. That's why you have to really press the brakes, because basically the braking effort is how much effort you put in on that brake pedal, but there's no power assistance. because all the power assistance is obviously inside here. So you should never get anything on the backs, it'll only ever be on the fronts. So I knew straight away they was wrong, and as you've probably guessed, what I worked out was the idiots. So what I did is got the hydraulic schematic and worked out obviously what should be where, and what the idiots had done is they piped it up wrong. Now if you look at the units, when you look at these ABS units on all cars, they always have these letters which obviously denote where they fit on the hydraulic circuit, and what they'd done is they'd mixed up HZ2 and HR, so these two pipes were crossed. So basically the master cylinder feed was going to the rear, and vice versa, the obviously rear was going back to the master cylinder. So once I swapped them two around and then started the process again, it bled up straight away. I went through the bleed routine and we had no problems at all, everything passed. And once you've done the bleed, you then go through some other tests, you then activate the Sensortronic, and what it then does is measure, it puts a static like 60 bar pressure into the system, and what it then does is evaluate all four corners, and they should be equal pressure. I think they were all around about 68 bar, which is a good indication you've got no air in. At that point, I wiped all the fault codes down, job done, started the car up, hey presto, every warning light off the dash, no faults in Sensortronic, everything was good. At that point, as far as I'm thinking, yep, job's done. I literally jumped into the car, and when I started it up, the moment I touched the brake pedal, we had a warning message. Instantly, red warning up again. Connected star back up, and what we had was a fault now in Sensortronic to do with the brake operating unit. Now the brake operating unit is this device here. Again, I've never ever known one of these to fail. I spoke to Andrew and he basically agreed with what I said, that he's never had one fail, never known one fail. Now cut it short, basically. The symptom I had on this was the brake pedal was very, very hard, really hard. Almost like when you've got no vacuum. I know there is no vacuum, but it was there was no movement in the pedal, and the moment you touched the pedal, the light came on. Now, if you kept your foot on the pedal just a few seconds, all of a sudden it would drop, and it would then feel quite normal. Until you switched off, start up again, you'd have no warning lights until the moment you touch the pedal, and it would be there. Now, Star basically went through, basically telling me that it's more than likely air into the system. So I did a bleed routine again. I knew there was no air in this system. I carried out the air test and it passed. And again, we still had this problem. I don't know how I did it, but I ended up on a screen within Star, which basically said, if the pedal's really hard, okay, it's going to be the brake operating unit, which was obviously that device there. So far we're already £952 in here. This is £775. So that's what I replaced. Not a bad job inside the car, not too bad. Put it on, bled it up, perfect. So the only thing I can conclude, and the importance of the video, is that if these pipes have been put on wrong, if you think logically about it, because when you do carry out the bleed routine on these units, at one stage it pressurizes the system up to 100 bar on the output to the brakes. So that tells me, because these are switched, when it was going to do the left rear, we had 100 bar going that way, which isn't normal, because obviously there's only ever pressure coming this way, not that way. And I think in doing that has damaged something inside this brake unit, because like I say, logically This was definitely faulty, 100%. Now you're not going to have that and that, which was never ever replaced ever, failing at the same time. I think because they've piped it up wrong, they've also then damaged this. So you had your original problem and then the problem that they've introduced. And anyway, cut a long story short, after the repair, everything's now right. So we now start up and we can press the brake. We've got a lovely brake pedal and everything's hunky-dory. We've got no faults. So that's one to watch out for. Make sure the Sensatronic's piped up right, because it may damage the brake operating unit. Okay.